This is my heater. I dare you to hit it.
He'll be sorry.
Want the heater? I'll give it to you.
Basketball, maybe they don't hit it.
A swing and a drive to deep right.
Clear the deck. Cannonball coming.
Left field. It is out of here.
What's up? What's good? We're back. Baseball Unstitched. Happy Tuesday morning to all of you, or whenever you may or may not be listening. We've got a nice little slate going for you guys today. But as always, we start with one question and one question only. Flax, how was your weekend?
Weekend was good. Like I said last week, no use complaining. My mom told me that the full saying is no use complaining. I think it was no use complaining because nobody will listen. Something to that effect. I'll have to ask her. We'll try again next week. But no, weekend was good. I started on the hill for our men's league team through 3 innings. It was a good 3 innings. We got the win. Otherwise, got to play golf. Shot a 74. For those of you out there who don't want to believe that, feel free. But no, otherwise it was good. How was your weekend?
Oh, not bad. I was down in Tampa. Got to go fishing with my brother and my stepdad. Had a nice clean catch and release on a 150, 200-pound shark. Wasn't fishing for it, but it was a nice little half-hour, 40-minute fight. My body hurt after the fact. And, had a good time. So, good weekend. It's a good win for the men's league team in Denver. I was up at, 3:30 in the morning Mountain Standard Time to make my way back and be late to the game. So I'm glad I got back. 10-9 win, we'll take it. But back to the baseball all of you care about, because as much as we love to talk about our men's league ball, we all know you guys didn't come here to hear that. And I'm going to go first this week on opening thoughts. There was a lot of people really, really stressed about the Atlanta Braves to start the season, and the world was falling. The sky was falling. Everybody was in the dumps. They're 7-3 over their last 10 games. And the spark plug that none of you saw coming in Alex Verdugo has arrived. I'm not even really sure what to say at this point.
Yeah.
He's come up, and I think every Yankees fan is watching this going, huh? Where was that? Because, honestly, he has come up real quickly in 8 games, and he's slashing 333, 368, 472. Yes, small sample size. Let's not even really focus on the slash line. Where I'm going with this is simple. He's been a spark plug for that team, and Atlanta friggin' needed it. They're looking to turn around their season pretty quick, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I mean, can't forget Eli White. He's been really solid for them also right now. I also just think with those guys starting to hit, other hitters in the lineup are finally getting pitches to hit, which makes life a little bit better. But no, overall, the Braves are doing exactly what we thought they were going to do. They're still pitching the ball well. Bryce Elder actually doesn't look half bad. We'll see tonight. But the fact that they have a bunch of guys that are starting to play a little better is just going to help move them along and get them to a place where Acuna Jr. comes back and then they take off and it's off to the races in that division. They gave the Mets a nice head start.
Listen, and my Nats are taking 2 from him.
They're hanging in there.
We're certainly not going to win today, but we're not going to talk about that one.
Never know.
Where are we starting for you this week, Flex?
I'm starting with Jordan Beck, Mike Honcho, as my Vols fans know him as. He is back in the big league club, currently slashing 261, 352, 630. He went over a 3-game stretch last week with 5, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 home runs. 2 games with multiple home runs against Kansas City and Cincinnati. First time he's put a ball out in Coors Field, he said. So I really like seeing Jordan Beck start to find it. He came back up April 19th from Albuquerque, has a hit in all but 2 games since coming back. That's what the Rockies needed. The Rockies are not winning games, but they need to see that their young guys can make the adjustments to be successful at the big league club. Guys like him, guys like Zach Veen, right? Zach Veen got sent down. Zach Veen got sent down because he was hitting 160-something and couldn't hit a fastball. We saw Zach Veen's first career home run. It was on a hanging changeup.
tank.
Right? Oh, yeah. But at the same time, if that's the pitch he's hitting out and he's not taking advantage of fastballs, which he's getting plenty of, we got to figure that out and got to go work on it. So Jordan Beck's my big one this week to open up with, just because I think it's improving the trajectory of their young offense, and someone's got to get Ryan McMahon going. I don't know what else to say there. But the Rockies as a whole are just not winning ball games. But if you watch them play, it's not like they're losing 10-2 every night. Like, they are somewhat in ball games, and they keep losing. I almost feel like I saw a tweet the other day where the Denver Rockies guys basically just said, we're basically counting how many times we enjoy watching the game, regardless of win or lose. They're playing a lot more of those ball games lately where it's competitive and they're doing the right things, and it's just not coming out on the winning side because they're playing tougher teams. They got the Braves tonight, tomorrow, and the next day. I think it's going to be a matter of the same thing. But again, if things are improving, it's hard to situationally look at it and think that, there's no hope there.
I believe they started out 4-23. Not the greatest start from a record perspective, but it's
what you'd call historically bad.
Well, with two guys with ballpark passes, I don't know that they've looked that bad, and we've seen some teams that look that bad. I love seeing Beck really, really start to show people the pop that he has at the big league level. That was the one big piece that we've talked about. The question was very, very simple. Was he going to be able to find the contact skill on a regular basis? And I think it's there. The guy's got pop. But we got a pretty good pod for you guys today. We're going to talk about the ABS challenge system, and then we're going to get into a little bit of the WBC roster discussion early here. We're going to set you guys straight on how the roster rules work for the WBC, and then we're going to talk about the middle infielders that you might see on that roster, and by golly, could it be fun?
There's a lot of them.
This kind of is going to lead us into the next section here, which is talking a little bit more about the ABS challenge system. It was heavily used this year in spring training, Major League spring training, to really see what type of effects it would have at this level on game time. How often guys were actually getting challenges right. Is it the batters, the catchers, or the pitchers who are more apt to get a call overturned?
What did it tell us about how good umpires were and actually weren't?
100%. And now that's only in scenarios where anybody felt as if the call needed to be challenged.
Right.
And we have that number as well. But I'm going to real quickly break down what the ABS challenge system is for those who aren't familiar with it. I'm going to make it really easy for a lot of people. If you've watched tennis and you've seen when a player in tennis challenges a ball being in or out, that is what the ABS challenge system is derived from. Okay? I find this so fascinating because I grew up with a dad who really enjoyed watching tennis. And every time I would see that, I'm like, is there any reason why we don't do that for balls and strikes in baseball? It only, not as a holistic thing, but hey, I want to challenge this, and we have a system that can tell me if the ball was on the corner or not.
Or like a first down in football, or
Sure.
Tons of different things.
So the ABS, but now that's the thing. The Hawkeye system that they use, which I'm going to go into. So there's a Hawkeye system that is basically a quote-unquote instantaneously, it relays to the home plate umpire whether or not it was a ball or a strike. That was the big initial piece of this was, here's our robo umpires, which technically speaking, if they wanted to, this could be that. But the current way of which the ABS system is being used in these Hawkeye camera systems that are installed in these stadiums are being used is they're tracking every single pitch, regardless of when, why, or where, every single pitch. And if the batter decides, the pitcher, or the catcher decides they would like to challenge where the ball was, whether it be a ball or a strike, they simply tap their head and the challenge is executed. These challenges in spring training took an average of 13.8 seconds, or added 13.8 seconds to the game. And I'm gonna run you guys through some data here. Bear with us, but I think this is important for you guys to know. So, according to there was a great article on MLB.com and Fangraphs about this. 52.2% of balls and strikes that were challenged this spring training resulted in a successfully overturned call of the home plate umpire's original ball or strike call. So let's talk about that number. 52.2% of the time when there was a challenge, no matter who executed the challenge, batter, catcher, or pitcher, it was overturned. 50% of the time. Okay, that's a good number. That is showing the knowledge of the zone from certain positions, but we're going to get further into this. Now, that's actually up from their test of this in AAA in 2024, when 50.6% of calls were challenged. Now, as we break down and get further in these numbers, the pitching team had a 54.4% overturned rate, which fared much better than the batters that were literally a coin flip. Exactly 50%. The best part of this whole thing is the person that you think would be right the most when they tried to challenge was. Who is that person, Flax? There's three guys who can challenge.
It's the catcher.
Each of those three guys. It's the catcher. It's the guy who should know the zone by far the best. Catchers, 56% of the time. 56% of the time, when they requested a challenge, it was overturned in their favor, which is way up. Because guess what, pitchers? Pitchers were only right 41% of the time. And hey, we all like the strikeout, but this tells you a lot, right?
To be fair, when you think about this logically, the catcher is stationary when he catches the ball, 100%. For the most part. Pitchers are nowhere near stationary. The visual that they have of their ball hitting the zone flying through the air is slightly distorted. To think that they would know better than a catcher or even a hitter is crazy to me.
And I definitely don't disagree. As somebody who is caught on a regular basis, as the guy who's caught the ball, not heard a strike, and kind of done one of these, and then kind of thrown the ball back to the pitcher, knowing that it was not the right call, doesn't surprise me. What I love about these numbers, though, is all of this is very coin flip. And that tells me this is something that is very effective for the game of baseball. Because this doesn't mean that umpires are just getting everything wrong. It's when we think something is almost egregiously wrong or in a big situation, it is wrong, it's still a coin flip. Umpires are still doing their job at a high enough rate in most scenarios, right? In spring training this year, there was about 4.1 challenges per game. It added less than an extra minute to each contest. Put it in the game. Things of that nature should be all that you need to know, right? On average, in 23 and 24 games were 2 hours and 35 minutes in the same data set. They were 2 hours and 38 minutes. They added 3 extra minutes to a game. I mean, I think that's great.
What I think needs to be adjusted about it still, that I didn't love, is what we consider to be touching the zone. Right? How much of the ball touching the zone is in the zone?
We won't fight about this one. I like this.
The expansion of the zone. So the width of the strike zone is 17 inches, same as home plate. And then the batter's height determines the strike zone. That is fine with me. But we need to have some level of understanding of how far we're technically expanding the zone, because it's not 17 inches wide. It's 17 inches plus a ball on each side. Because as we saw it, it was a touch of the seam touching the edge of the zone for a strike.
As it should be.
As it should not be. If we're truly calling a strike what a strike is, that's not
over the plate, Flax.
That's just not true. Either way, let's stop calling the strike zone 17 inches wide, because it's not 17 inches wide. Let's call it what it is and create a shadow box around the 17-inch wide box and say it's also got to be within this, because that's the ball width and that will make everyone happy. But if you are not, it's got to be within a realm, because We can't just sit there and say, oh, but it crossed the plate. Like, yeah, I've seen some egregious pitches get called strikes that probably in the ABS system would have been caught by a hair. They're in no way, shape, or form a hittable pitch. The goal here is not to set up a system that allows pitchers to work off of the edges of the plate, use ABS to then make stuff unhittable by hitters. It will make the game unwatchable. We need to better define what the strike zone is going to be and how we interact with it.
The reason I disagree with you so much is, and this is how I know I've spent way more time on the Hill than you, is truly what this comes down to. And there's nothing wrong with that, because your view, in my opinion, is much more tailored towards being in the box. And I understand where you're coming from. The difference for me is the outline of that box. If you touch it at any point, that is crossing the zone. The ball crossed the zone in some way, shape, or form. And the reality is, a strike in baseball is touching that zone. It is not being in the zone. It is touching that zone in any way, right? And at every level of baseball, every hitter knows, without a doubt, especially in high leverage counts, if you're not expanding your zone one ball's width out of the zone, you are liable to get yourself called
Sure,
out.
definitely.
So
but guys are going to get deeper into counts on pitches that are, borderline not sure. Guys are going to have to change the way that they approach hitting. But I'll say this as a fan. This is not me as a player. This is me as a fan. I don't care for strikeouts. Strikeouts don't excite me. They don't do anything for me. They're boring. I want to see the ball put in play, and I want to see the game happen. I want things going on. Pitchers just strike. Like, a 20 strikeout game is the anomaly. 9 to 12 strikeout games are boring to me. They just are. As a fan, I don't find interest in it. So if we're creating a system that's going to elevate the chances of that, I don't like the system as it is set up. I'm not saying I don't like ABS.
Is it really doing that right now? It's a 50-50 coin flip. And batters are still getting things right at a 50% rate. So I feel like the argument here is it might take away strikeouts as much as it gives them.
It may not. Again, I think if we're saying that it's still a coin flip, then at some point, what's the difference? I think it tells me more that umpires stink. But again, I'm not saying that because umpires are bad at their job. I'm saying it because it's a really hard job to do. And when you think about the fact that the ABS system is changing the strike zone on every single hitter, top to bottom, and now we're talking about people having a different understanding of the width based on how much of a ball should or should not be given off the plate, now we can understand why this is such a hard job for umpires to have.
Sure.
Now we can understand why they make so many of what we would call mistakes. And when I say what we would call mistakes, I'm talking about the box that they put on the TV that should never have showed up to begin with to tell us what is and is not a strike. Because A, the box is wrong compared to what StatCast shows, and StatCast aligns with what the ABS strike zone should be. By the way, all those low strikes that you think are low and are fastballs are actually strikes because the umpire knows where the bottom of the zone is, and he aligns much better with the StatCast and the ABS zone than you think he does.
Agreed.
There's a reason why the catcher can catch them. There's a reason why the catcher can get underneath them. But also, I just want it to be understood that this conversation right here is the epitome of why I kind of live in this camp that ABS is take it or leave it for me. It's not a needle mover, right? Like as a hitter, it's fine that I could have the opportunity, but like me going to the challenge or the way I would think about challenging today is based off of the zone that I'm feeling the umpire has. Me having to rework that in my brain for what the actual zone is a whole nother level of effort when I just want to get up there and hit the ball and the game's already hard enough. For the catcher, we're inviting him into something that he can be exponentially more successful at than the other guys on the field. That number would separate the more often it happened. I am almost positive of that. But that aside, it's probably coming into baseball next year. There's really no ways around it.
Look, we'll disagree on it, and I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think that this is, for me, this is a really good thing for baseball, and the biggest thing that you've said that I'm not disagreeing with, though we may disagree with how we feel about the zone and crossing the plate, that's fine. there does have to be an extremely well-defined, this is what we are deciding as a zone, this is what we're deciding will be called a strike, and we are not going to deviate from that unless it's after a season and we've decided to make adjustments. If one person has to live with it, everybody has to live with it. I think that's super, super important for this scenario. I actually think it is going to give potentially more life to ABs than people realize. And I also think the only thing that scares me is what you brought up, which is the only person with a distinct advantage in this scenario is the catcher. He's the only person with a distinct advantage. Because guess what? Batters are still going to be, they're going to be more right than the pitchers. Okay? So the question is, does the 56 and 41% even out to be okay with the 50-50 you're getting from the batters?
A 6% deviation between pitchers and between catchers and hitters feels significant in a small data set because I'd expect it to be almost 50-50 both ways. But again, the 41% doesn't do a lot for me because pitchers were rarely challenging. Catchers were challenging what felt like 80% of the opportunities.
This does tell you, though, if I'm a big league club and they put this in place next year, my pitchers don't get a say.
No, I would never. Yeah, I would tell my pitchers. I would maybe have one or two guys that are like veterans, and only because you're really setting a precedent to say you have the green light with the hope and understanding that they recognize the situation and don't feel the need to do it and trust the other people on the field to do that job for them. Yeah. I still don't think this keeps Aaron Boone in his seat much. I still think ABS comes into play. I still think he's yelling at the umpires. I still think he's giving CB Buckner the business. I don't think we're ever going to lose that.
I don't think you got to worry about that.
I don't want to.
I think Aaron Boone's going to walk out of the dugout and tell CB Buckner how stupid ABS is for 5 minutes till he throws him out. And that's completely fine with me, right? It'll either be that or some fan will scream at CB Buckner and he'll throw out Aaron Boone anyway.
Well, that too, yeah. But I want to leave everybody with this understanding of how difficult the job is for an umpire. Because if the players that are on the field that are other eyeballs to the situation, a catcher who is crouched directly behind where said strike zone is, he's still only getting those right half the time. Think about how hard it is from an umpire's perspective. As the stuff gets better, as the speed gets faster, it's a difficult job to do. And staying consistent is what they do the best. Good or bad, what they do the best is they stick around the same zone for an entire game. You can be upset with the calls they make, but they're going to continuously make them. It's very few and far between that they are inconsistent throughout the game or really throughout their career. Guys have zones that are bigger. Guys have zones that are smaller. Guys work lower. Guys work higher. It's well known. Pitchers, catchers, hitters, coaches, managers, whatever, they all come into the game knowing exactly what they're getting from the umpire they're getting. Doesn't mean they're not going to keep getting upset. Doesn't mean there's not going to be some egregious calls that happen that if we had ABS, we could just put to bed. But I just want to reiterate that it is a very tough job to do.
And I like the point that's made here. We are very, very critical as a fan, not as a fan base, as baseball fans, we're very critical of the job umpires do. And they walk into every game knowing that they're going to get criticized for just about every
Oh my God, yeah.
make. And there's going to be a lot of blame placed on them for whoever does not end up winning the game, especially if there's one or two calls that were egregious. Either way, we don't want to beat this up too much. ABS is going to be very interesting if they decide to implement it in 2026. I'm excited for it. Flax is much more on the fence than me. But we're going to find out how it's going to go because I think it's coming. I don't think there's much stopping it from at least being attempted. Moving right along, our captain for the 2026 WBC.
Captain, my captain.
Aaron Judge, who, by the way, still right now looks like As much as I always say Juan Soto is the best hitter on the planet, he looks like he's the best hitter on the planet right now, and it's really getting hard to deny it. I mentioned this to Flax before we get into how roster construction works. I love that there's always an emphasis on a new captain each WBC. That is such a... I can only imagine getting to be the captain of a team that is representing your country as one of the greatest honors you could have, especially as something like the WBC continues to gain steam and be a very important piece of the expansion of baseball. Very excited to have Aaron Judge as the captain. Very excited to have Mark DeRosa back as the manager. We're going to have a lot to watch here this year, especially as MLB teams are starting to notice and the MLB itself is starting to notice how important it is that we start letting our best players, if they're healthy, play in this tournament.
It puts significance on the event.
Yes.
If you're an American player playing in the major leagues, there's an emphasis on the World Baseball Classic. Instead of it being this thing that sneaks up on you because you're so focused on playing your game, you recognize the impact that your production, your performance can have on the World Baseball Classic that is upcoming and potentially going to be something you can be a part of. Having the captaincy be a thing of importance adds a level of importance to the event, because if the elite players are gunning for a specific position on the roster as captain, then you, in a lower level of not eliteness, would also be gunning to be a part of the team that person is captaining. And I love that aspect that you had called out when we talked about it yesterday of changing that every single year, because I think that could be so impactful for the growth and the excitement of the World Baseball Classic for a lot of the game's best players.
Yeah, and we've seen how electric the WBC is for other countries, and especially the Latin American countries. It is taken very seriously. And the United States has started to take it seriously over the last 3 or 4 WBC events. I'm glad that I think we're finally recognizing that this is on what is becoming one of the biggest stages in the world to watch baseball. So, now that we've gone on our little soapbox about the captain himself, Mr. Judge, and how we feel about the WBC, let's walk into these roster rules. 30 players on your roster. You are required 14 pitchers, which we will get into a little bit later is actually up to 22 pitchers. And you're required 2 catchers. In injury situations, it's really simple. If a catcher gets hurt, he must be replaced by a catcher. If a pitcher gets hurt, he must be replaced by a pitcher. I'm going to let you guess the last one about position player. I'm not even going to say it. Very simple. These designations just make sure that everybody is going to have the same amount of pitchers, catchers, position players when they come into the WBC. All of these players must be on the Federation teams list. That's basically stating you are eligible to be part of this roster. There are many, many rules that go into that about passports and grandparents, and we're not going to roll that deep. That's not where we're.
It's not what we're doing here today. We might do it another time. We're not doing that here today.
We probably will eventually, knowing us. But the very interesting thing about roster construction comes with pitchers. Flax and I had to sit down and decide how we explain to you how what they call the designated pitcher pool works. So, Flax, I'm going to let you attempt to explain the designated pitcher rule, and then I'm going to tell everybody how to draw it out, and it'll make all the sense in the world.
Okay, well, let's start with what is the designated pitcher pool. Designated pitcher pool is a group of 10 pitchers that exist and are defined by said federation team. Federation team being Team USA. On the active roster of 30 players, you have 14 pitchers. Within that group of 14 pitchers, a minimum of 2 need to be a part of what I call the carousel. The carousel is an ever-changing rotation of pitchers that come in and out of that designated pitcher pool as needed and defined on different rosters within that group of 22 that Ryan had mentioned before.
So, for any of you who said, huh? Because that might have happened. So all of our...
I thought I explained that well.
I thought you explained it really well, too. The problem is regardless how this is explained, until you see it, it didn't make any sense to me. So I had to sit here and make my own visual analytics. Wait till you guys on YouTube see this. So here's our visual analytics. Let's see if it's going to pop up nicely. Okay. So, 22 pitchers. For everybody who is just listening, you could follow along with this. If you draw 22 dots on a page...
Don't do this while driving.
And please don't do this while driving. And from right to left, you circle 14 people. And then from left to right, you put a rectangle around 10 people. You will notice that you have a group of 2 people who are part of both box or circle. The box that is now around 10 players is your designated pitcher pool. And those 2 players that are circled and boxed represent the 2 people you have to have on your active pitching roster to utilize the designated pitcher pool. So, if you needed to visualize it, as I did, though Flax did explain it very well, you now have a way to visualize it. Very interesting thing that can be done, and for countries that have a lot of true, professional baseball players, which anymore, it's about all of them, they're going to have larger pools of pitchers to pick from, and I think that's going to be a big benefit, especially for teams like the Latin teams, the USA team, the Japanese team, the Korean team, Chinese Taipei, right? These are all groups that have professional leagues that they can pull players from. This is going to help a team like Team Australia because they do have a professional league in Australia that is continuing to improve on a regular basis. So I'm really excited to see how all of these rosters break out. I'm excited to see what arms outside of the main 14 are going to be able to be rotated in if need be, and what scenarios depending on a matchup. But let's drop into what we thought was one of the most fun categories to talk about right off rip, and that's how stacked the United States infield could be across the board. And it's,
there's a lot of them.
Play 3 shortstops at second, short, and third, and nobody would question you. I think there's a couple third basemen that are definitely going to get themselves in the mix. Which
you could play 6. Excellent. You could just flip-flop them every game. 6 shortstops.
You absolutely could. So there was a little article that was written, and it was what would this dream team look like? And here's the names they gave for up the middle. And they're going to surprise, I hope, none of you.
Nobody.
Bobby Witt Jr., Gunnar Henderson, Trey Turner, who was the starting shortstop for us in 2023, Corey Seager, Mookie Betts. Yeah. It's pretty sick.
It's elite company.
And then you just got to sit there and ask yourself, if all 5 of those guys want to play and want to be on the roster, how you even figure that out?
Yeah, when you break it down, you've got 14 pitchers, 2 catchers, that's 16 guys. Now you've got to fill out another 14 players that are position players. In all likelihood, you're probably looking at 5 outfielders. When it's all said and done, probably a utility player. That's 6. And then you've got, what's the number left?
8.
8 infielders. Probably 2 first basemen, so we don't count them. So you've got 6 guys for 3 positions. It's really difficult for Mark DeRosa.
And I think the nice piece for DeRosa here is you can slot Mookie right into that utility spot you said and open up one of those infield roles.
Right, you could make it 7. You could absolutely, you could make it 7
because Betts can play all of them, which is for a bat of that nature not common.
I think it'd be okay just putting him behind the plate. He'd do just fine.
You could put him on the mound and he'd be all right.
I know.
I'm not even bullcrapping it. Like
that I wasn't worried about.
But
when you look at this list, right, it's hard because there's other guys in the league that are also really good. There's guys that are playing really well right now that would be beneficial adds to the team for the future of Team USA baseball, right? Corey Seager may not play after this World Baseball Classic, given age, injury history. He may not play this World Baseball Classic, given injury history. So who do you start to turn to? I like guys like Jacob Wilson. Bat-to-ball skills are there. He's very clearly okay with playing in some big moments. It's not new for him. He has the pedigree. There's also guys that have just been in the league and been in bigger situations, like a Marcus Semien or Bryson Stott, that
we
are
even
playing
talk about
really good.
My boy Boba Fett.
Yeah, right.
About Boba Fett.
So you got, right? Like it is.
Boba Fett for anybody who's not following along with my need to call him Boba Fett.
There is an endless list, not endless, but there is a very long list of potential infielders that Mark DeRosa could go grab from, right? And if we're strictly talking about middle infield, we're strictly talking about who's playing second base and shortstop, we're going to keep the conversation to the realm of shortstops. So for those out there that are asking, what about this third baseman? What about that third baseman? We're not talking about them yet. We're just talking about the middle infielders. We may slip a little third base conversation in there because the likelihood is one of these guys may slide over. That would not be shocking. We've seen it happen in the game, and we've seen it happen in the World Baseball Classic.
I tell you what, the fun one for me would be on the third base front, and we're going to leave it just at this, would be Austin Riley gets as hot as I think he could get, and then you can't say no, right? And we could see this happen, right? Now the other piece is, who said Austin Riley couldn't move over to first, though we've got a lot of great options at first. So this is what we're getting at here. We're just talking middle infielders right now who probably deserved an opportunity on the roster, could easily start, and we all know that as shortstops or second basemen, a lot of these guys could potentially help play another infield position. Right now, when you look at these shortstops, you got to pick one guy to start at short.
Bobby Witt Jr.
No question.
No question.
I think is, you know, Trey Turner is one of my favorite players of all time.
Absolutely.
I got to watch him maturate in DC. Gunnar Henderson, when he's where he needs to be, is maybe as good as anybody in baseball. But I don't know that there's a more complete package at shortstop right now in the game than Bobby Witt Jr. And the electricity he could bring as the five-tool player he is to that roster. Oof.
Last year, Bobby Witt Jr. hit a 99-mile-an-hour fastball in on his hands for a walk-off home run at like 110 off the bat. I don't have to say anything more. Like his innate talent and skill. He had a hustle double on a line drive base hit to dead left this weekend. I don't like the stuff he does is so exciting for a team. Yeah. He himself got into Kansas City and revitalized that ball club. He turned Salvador Perez into Salvador Perez of 8 years prior.
Just out of the fact that he was excited to be there.
Exactly. Like, that's a guy I want at shortstop for my World Baseball Classic team. There's no question in my mind Bobby Witt Jr. is your starting shortstop.
Yeah, healthy, willing to do it, which I have no question about that.
I'd be shocked if he didn't.
It would be hard-pressed to place anybody else right now.
Absolutely.
I think our second baseman probably comes out of this pool. We had that discussion. There are some guys who are very good at second base right now in the league. The additional potential defense you get from moving a shortstop to second, plus the fact that right now in baseball we have more consistent bats at shortstop than we do second. Yep. It's going to be hard for me to see it not being a shortstop sliding over.
There was a time where that wasn't the case, right?
Correct, 100%.
There was a time where the offense, that offensive production and power that was coming out of the second base position was almost second to none in the infield. They were almost hitting more power than third baseman at a point in time. That's just not the case right now.
Listen, and I totally agree with you. So it's no disrespect to the guys in the league playing second base. It's shortstop is one of the healthiest positions in baseball right now, and we're not always saying that. So really love this from an overall standpoint. The only thing I'm going to leave on is our combination up the middle in 2023, or the main combination for the United States team, was Trey Turner and Tim Anderson. Trey at short, Tim at second. So just give you guys some idea of what it looked like in the past. There is also the one reminder we have with this roster construction. MLB teams are pulling off the brakes on not allowing players to play and participate in this out of concern of injury. Everybody remembers what happened to Edwin Diaz. That was a whole thing. That's always been the scare. We finally understand how important this event is, and I believe that MLB teams are going to be more apt and more willing as long as the player is going into it fully healthy, and I think that is great for baseball in the States and outside of the States. So I love it. I'm very excited for the WBC. I've been talking about it since the last one, and it's already almost here. Flex, any final thoughts on the WBC?
I'm just excited for the wide range of talent across a lot of different countries. I think people aren't necessarily understanding of how good the talent is getting in Europe and how good the talent is getting in Australia.
Yep.
And it's making its way to the minor leagues. It's making its way to college baseball a lot right now. We're going to start seeing it make its way to Major League Baseball. And in these world competitions, those teams play for something different. It doesn't have to be the best players in the world to still go out there and compete in a baseball game. You need a good arm on the hill, and you need some guys that take good at-bats against really tough pitching. Anybody can win on any given day. So that's why I love the tournament, and I'm excited for it. I'm excited that we get to start talking about it a lot more.
Yeah, we're on our way. Flax, final thoughts today for you, if any.
Final thoughts from today for me. Check out our live show. We do it every Sunday night on Twitter. We're having a good time with it. A bunch of people are coming and watching. Chat with us. Throw your ideas in chat. Give us some topics to talk about. We really enjoy the engagement. That's all I got, though.
We're recording on Monday the 28th, and Jacob Wilson is hitting leadoff for the Sacramento. I'm sorry, just the Athletics.
Just the Athletics.
He's hitting leadoff for the Athletics. We tried to tell all of you, if you didn't pick him up on your fantasy team or your dynasty league, it's too late. But we did try to tell you. Guy's stud, contact skills out of this world. So, yeah, I'm happy to get to see him being in a position where he's going to be potentially guaranteed one more at-bat a game, and that's really where I'm going with this.
I do have one more thing, actually.
Do it.
I do not condone sports gambling. I do not do it a lot, but I did have a home run prop on Ryan O'Hearn tonight, and Ryan O'Hearn did leave the building.
Woo!
So,
and guess what? It was definitely a right-handed pitcher, huh?
Oh, Will Warren. And my thought process, because I only take this from a baseball thought process. My final thought's taking longer than I wanted it to here, but
Okay.
My thought process was, Will Warren does have a tendency to throw some off speed that stays over the plate. Ryan O'Hearn's really good at hitting fastballs up the middle. They're playing in Baltimore. My thought was if he leaves something a little softer over the plate, Ryan O'Hearn would have a tendency to hit it in the air, pull side, which tends to be a good place for left-handed hitters to hit at Camden Yards.
And what
So
did
it's
you do?
very well thought out. Ryan O'Hearn did hit a home run tonight. I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know if that's actually what happened, but I'm assuming he threw an off speed that Ryan O'Hearn ran into in the air pull side.
All right. As always, Jackson is here to tell us all the things we may or may not have done wrong. Jackson, you're up.
Y'all are a pretty good week. Not a lot of stats to have messed up, so I would say overall from a factual stat category, didn't get anything wrong. Did not get anything wrong this week.
First for everything.
Yeah,
First time for everything.
I definitely could have, even without stats.
Hopefully this isn't too often of occurrence, as I love making fun of you guys. But a couple of things that I did thought should have been brought up. I wouldn't say they were errors. First off, I got when we were talking about the ABS system, I feel like we should have been talking about how it's going to have an impact the catcher position with how framing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Felt like that could have been a fun topic
that.
to discuss.
I agree.
And then Next, we got infielders. There's two guys who I thought maybe could have got brought up. Dansby Swanson is one. I
Okay.
feel like his name could have been in the discussion.
Yeah.
And then the next one, this is completely personal. Brendan Donovan.
Oh,
He
listen.
he looks like a WBS guy. He
You know
just
what?
looks like it.
He might get his chance, like when we talk about that utility position specifically, for what it's
Yeah.
worth, because that is something he can do at a very high level.
I looked at his reference page. What would y'all think his career OPS plus is?
Career OPS plus for
God.
Brendan Donovan, I would have guessed like 119, 120.
I was gonna say
120 exactly.
I was gonna say.
Let's go!
I was gonna say like
Come
110.
on!
That's impressive.
He's hit 359 this year. That's a guy I think gets a little bit of respect. And the
I
last-
like where you're going with that. We're gonna keep an eye on Mr. Donovan.
Well, listen. I mean, you want to know why that Cardinals team is not doing too poorly. But Jackson,
That's why.
I have to tell you, he is from Germany.
Oh, he is?
Yes.
Oh, did I just get stat corrected? Unreal.
Oh, Jackson, that's one. You're on
Oh
the board.
man, he's on the board.
Let's
Wow.
go, ladies and gentlemen.
Brendan
It was
Donovan
bound
sounds
to
like
happen.
Yeah.
Brendan Donovan sounds like a suburb outside of Kansas City. It sounds like where he's from.
Listen, so does what's his name? What's the outfielder for the Phillies? I love him.
Max Kepler.
So does Max Kepler.
Yeah.
Kepler sounds
also German.
No.
Yeah.
Either
Last-
way.
Last
didn't
thing I
know
have
that.
for this week, I have a losers of the week. Since we didn't have any stat corrections, losers of the week. First off, I have whoever had to face Joe Ryan this week. 30 inches of sweeper. But you're a loser.
Yeah, two and a half feet of break on a pitch.
Yeah.
Good luck. That's
Next
funny.
up, I brought this up on the live in the chat. The UCF pitcher who celebrated too soon and gave up the tying run. I'm not going to call out any names, but
Yes.
That's
Woo.
tough.
and the last loser of the week is whoever had to watch Flax pitch, as I'm assuming that is not a pretty sight to see.
It was not that bad this week. It was not that bad this week.
To his credit,
We're learning.
Very good this week. Jackson, you should hear this. We went from 9 walks to 2 walks over more innings. Flax was looking good. Believe it or not, I know your joke was gonna land so hard when we told you he walked 9 again.
Listen,
didn't.
It certainly could
But
have
he
been.
didn't.
I actually have a loser of the week this week.
It's me.
And no, it's not you. God. It's going to be the Texas Rangers 9th inning defense against the Giants yesterday, who lost on a walk-off Little League home run when Elliot
yeah,
Ramos
dude.
hit a dribbler to the pitcher that turned into a 3-2 victory for the G-men. So that's my loser of the week.
Oh, this is great. I'm going to be the positive guy and go winner of the week. It turns out Patrick Corbin just needed to be bit by a spider.
Yeah, what's going on
Patrick
there?
Corbin, since he has been bit by a spider, has been an elite pitcher. Ergo, moving forward on this podcast, Patrick Corbin will be referenced as Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
Thank you very
Of
much.
course, has to.
And ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed. As always, ton of fun. Jackson, loved all of it. Thanks for making sure we're always put in our place. And we got to put you in yours today. So past that, have a great week. We appreciate you guys.